So before we came on the air, you literally said you're on the show with 3 Brits.
Yeah, I'm outnumbered here.
We're not that bad, are we, guys?
Like Haney is gonna he's gonna cut me to bits here with like a battle axe, like he's William Wallace.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. Jim, how do you even answer that?
I'm just trying to think whether William Wallace used a battle axe. I should know. I've got Scottish blood, so I can't remember. We'll say he did.
Yeah.
It sounds cooler if he did.
It does, definitely.
Yeah. And he wasn't even born in Scotland. He was born in France, but we won't talk about things like that.
What, you're not saying that Braveheart was historically inaccurate, are you?
But was it very much so?
A Mel Gibson movie being historically inaccurate? Say it ain't so.
Yeah. And on that bombshell, let's roll the intro. And we welcome you to another edition of the Magic of Wrestling podcast. I'm, of course, one half of the host, Liam Wakelin.
And I am the American half of the equation. I'm the American quarter of this equation. I'm the F and expert, Mr. Isaacs. Good evening, everybody.
Of course. And Mr. Isaacs, our weekly checkup. How's your week been, my man?
Oh, it's been busy as hell, but it's pretty awesome. I'm getting a little better at the jiu-jitsu thing. I didn't get submitted any the other night, and I actually got 2 submissions, almost got a third one, so I'm pretty happy about that. Otherwise, work, and yeah, that's all I've been doing. How about yourself, man? How you doing?
Busy as always, like I said, interviewing stuff like that, work. I mean, booking more interviews. We've got obviously a few interviews we're going to be dropping next week. So yeah, absolute busy as always. I mean, yeah, not much really I can say to that, to be honest.
Always the busy ginger man. Yeah, I mean, he is the busy ginger wrestling interviewer of the UK.
Of course.
That needs to be your name.
I'm loving that. I'm loving that, actually. So, and of course, we're joined by a good friend of ours, Jim. It's an absolute pleasure as always, mate. How are you been?
I've been good, yeah, thanks. I caught some of True Grit Wrestling in York last week, which it's always weird going to a wrestling event held in a school hall. And don't know why, just feels really weird. You imagine the kids coming in on Monday morning, and I don't know whether there's some wrestling paraphernalia dotted around, but True Grit's a Yorkshire promotion. It's always a good night out.
You obviously haven't been on the schoolyard in Scotland, yeah. But was it that's like is it break time?
There we go. Yeah.
Deathmatch wrestling was invented. That was in the primary school yards of Scotland.
They were taking cheese graters to each other's heads out on the little spinning thing, the little wheelie round. Yeah,
exactly. Cheers. What was it? Swantons off the gymnastics boards. It was brutal.
The jungle gym was turned into like a scaffold for a scaffolding match.
Yeah, that was always great when you were at school and you could get crash mats out and try and do wrestling moves.
Yeah.
Dear, brilliant. And of course, we're joined by this salty one. But actually, I've got a little introduction for you here. Do you know what I mean? I've done a little bit of research and stuff like that, and I found a little thing. So every time you come on the show, we're going to play this. Are you ready? Yes, no?
Yes, I'm ready. I was waiting.
Okay, here we go.
Look, you're here. Yay!
Yay!
Liam was so excited about that little intro for you, Haney. Like he was like a little kid, like giddy about the shit all week.
Oh, that's brilliant! Yes, brilliant. Yes.
The most annoying thing was I actually literally had to crop the actual segment with that, and I'm like, it's more worse than the fact that Eva Marie's in it.
Gotta love Eva Marie. Oh, why she isn't on the PWI was it top 10 list? I do not know. She's such a great wrestler.
She's probably on the top 10 list somewhere. It's probably not for the good things, but you know what I mean.
Oh, come on, that's terrible. That's not nice. That's not nice.
What? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, you're
All
talking about
red,
the
everything.
you're talking about the greatest technical female wrestler of all time.
I would have liked to have seen Eva Marie versus Prime Wendy Richter in the 80s.
Oh, that would have been awesome. You know.
I don't even... I'm lost. Do you know what I mean? We're 5 minutes in and I ain't got a clue what's happening anymore.
Yeah.
Hey, it's just we're just flowing with the wind, my friend.
Yeah. Talking about the wind, I'm glad, Mr. Isaac, you took my advice on the jiu-jitsu and had a Taco Bell before you went into a couple of matches, because obviously that worked for your submission.
It did.
You know. Yeah. So obviously you need to eat a bit more Taco Bell, because that third one, obviously you ran out a bit of gas. You know. So what was it? Obviously that's why you didn't get that third submission. You know.
Well, you could use the you can use the gas to just get out of a submission. You know, you just blast them with some gas in the face, and they're like, "Fuck," and then they just let go.
Yeah.
Jim,
I like a picture. I like a picture in my head was, you know, when I did an arm bar on a guy, is just watching Dynamite and hearing Excalibur, "Hey, let's go for the Gucci Katami."
I try not to listen. I try not to listen to that guy. That guy is the most ridiculous, worst commentator there has ever been in
Oh,
I can't stand him. He's even worse than Officer Bar Brady.
Officer Bar Brady. What show did he announce for?
That was what's the guy in EW? What was it? It was at the beginning. Martinez or whatever his name is. Hello there.
Oh, Alex Marvez. Is that who you're talking about?
Yes, that's what Cornette calls him, Officer Bar Brady.
Marvez is
still there?
Yeah.
Is he even still there? I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
Like, occasionally it pops up, you know.
His horrible acting still makes an appearance about once every, I don't know, month and a half or something.
Yeah, he was one of the guys that was involved in trying to get some of the lawsuits off the WWF off the ground as well, way back in the day, you know. So he's got a long history with wrestling, you know. So sounds about That was it. Was the reason why he wasn't a personality, you know. It was more entertaining watching. What was it? I don't know. Young Bucks match, and that's saying something.
Here we go. Look, we're 8 minutes in, Jim, and just for context, Haney's not a Young Bucks fan.
All right, fair enough. I mean, they're not on the best form of their life at the minute, but
they never have been, to be honest. Yeah. Somebody was talking about the Motorcycle Machine Guns sort of debuting, and it says like, "Oh, the WWE sort of like botched it because they came in there and they weren't made to made to be like super over and like this big strong team." And I'm like, yeah, that's because they've took 10 years to get the stink off of Jen Me off them so they could come back and actually re-establish a career, you know. And whatever happened to Jeremy Buck, I don't know.
Generation Me. Whatever happened to those guys, ain't he?
Yeah. Definitely.
No idea.
All right, gentlemen. We're ready to move on to the main event.
We are. Let's do this. Here we
go. Do it. Let's go.
The main event.
I literally had to scramble to try and find that. I couldn't find it literally a split second ago.
You almost lost your one fuck to give, Liam.
I did. What the fuck, man?
Oh my god. Dude, you got to be better prepared. You got to have your fucks ready to go. All right?
Absolutely.
That's not acceptable.
I'm sorry. Please don't write me up for an infringement, please. So yeah, obviously it's episode 2 of our Wrestling Industry series. Last week we did AEW. This week we're doing WWE, and I will hand you over to Mr. Isaacs. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to lead the conversation this week. You know, as Liam said, for Jim, I don't know if you listened last week or not, but we did an AEW episode where we kind of just covered a little bit, not too much, about the history of AEW and then the cultural relevance of AEW, what AEW means to wrestling, and where we see it going forward. And we're kind of going to do the same thing here with WWE. And, you know, just kind of for historical context, the WWF ran by Vince McMahon Sr., was an NWA territory that, of course, anybody that watched the McMahon documentary or anybody that just knows about wrestling history in general, that Vince McMahon Jr. Bought it off of Sr. and decided, you know what? I don't want to do this NWA territory shit anymore. I want to go national. And took the WWF, became the WWF, and ended up becoming a national product that has become the phenomenon we know today as the WWE. Now, I would argue that WWE is the only real culturally relevant wrestling promotion alive today, at least, especially in North America. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but when people talk about wrestling, they talk about WWE. They're synonymous with each other. And I think it's difficult to avoid talking about WWE whenever you mention the word wrestling, because that, especially to people that don't know much about wrestling, that's literally all they know, unless they remember the old NWA territory days or old WCW, maybe ECW. But the cultural relevance of WWE is, whether you love it or hate it, I know a lot of people, particularly a lot of fans here, think that that's the great Satan, but you can't deny the relevance of the WWE. Now, I'll start with you, Jim. When did, I don't know how old you are, but when did you start knowing about or watching WWE?
WWE will have been 91, so I've been 10. And it was weird because you know how when you're at school and there's something that's popular and it's the latest fad, whether it's Ninja Turtles or it's The Simpsons or whatever, and wrestling just became the thing seemingly overnight, and I don't even know who first mentioned it to me or who started watching it, but just somehow it was like, oh, wrestling's the thing now and we need to start watching wrestling. And the first event I watched was SummerSlam 91, which was the match made in heaven, the match made in hell.
Yeah.
And and then it was fairly popular for a few years. Obviously, SummerSlam 92 was massive in England, and it sort of tailed off a little bit in popularity after that. And once Hogan had gone fully, and sort of as it went into the new generation era, it kind of fell out of the mainstream consciousness at that point, I think, until the Attitude Era kind of brought it back, at which point I was 16, 17 in sixth form, and we started watching it sort of much more regularly at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Now, around that time, was there any other wrestling in the UK that was big or talked about? I mean, I know that the Brits had the what was it, World of Sport back in like
the
70s and 80s, I believe.
Yeah, World of Sport was always something like when you first mentioned you were watching wrestling, like your parents and your uncles and aunts would be like, oh, you mean like Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks? And that was always, and Giant Haystacks, I believe, became Loch Ness in WCW. That might be people's exposure to him. But so they would always talk about that, but it wasn't like on at the time. We got a bit of exposure to WCW, mainly sort of piggybacking off the success of WWF. Like you would see WCW action figures that pop up at the same time, and largely you wouldn't be that familiar with them. Like you'd see some of the guys, and like obviously Ric Flair went over to WWF, so we got to know him. But the majority of the wrestlers, you were like, yeah, no, not sure who that is. Don't know who this Arn Anderson guy is. And the action figures weren't as good. WCW, they were just like one pose rubber figures. Whereas your WWF figures, they were good. They had an action and everything. But so there was a bit of awareness of WCW. But I'm not even sure whether it was broadcast over here. Like WWF, we got through Sky TV, which was having a bit of a boom at the time as well. Yep. And they used to show the pay-per-views for free if you had a subscription. Weirdly, to the movie channel, they showed the pay-per-views on movie channels, but they showed them live. So it was about 1 a.m. on Sky Movies. You'd get WrestleMania or whatever.
Wow, that's awesome. It's funny. I like how you mentioned the figures because I had virtually all those Hasbro WWF figures,
awesome.
and then I had the WCW figures too, which were basically just very hard rubber stuck in one position. Where like Sting was like,
I was like, who's this piss poor imitation of the Great Ultimate Warrior?
But like, the funny thing about the WCW characters is like, when I was a kid, I was outside playing with my figures, having them wrestle on like steps or something. And there was like a delivery guy that came to the door, and he's like, "Hey, man, what do you got there?" Like, and I showed him some of my figures, and he picked up a Barry Windham, and he was like, "Oh, that's cool." And he just like threw it back to me, and where it was hard rubber, it hit me in the face. I didn't catch it. And like my face hurt the rest of the fucking night because Barry Windham's rubber body slammed into the side of my face.
Yeah.
I will say one thing in defense of the WCW toys. The ring playset was better because you got a cage with it and you got a little launcher off the top turnbuckle so you could launch the figures. Whereas the WWF one was just the blue ring. You got a championship belt with it, but you didn't have the cage.
I had them both too. Yeah.
There you go.
The little like diving board off the top rope.
That was it.
Yeah, don't give them ideas. That's what all these high flyers want to do. That's how you got all these high flyers. They played with WCW rings.
Maybe that's what they need to do in AEW next is put like an actual diving board on the top rope. Yeah. Would that be a good idea, Haney?
No.
All right, Haney, we've probably talked about this before, but like, what is your earliest memory of WWE, and what was WWE's reach in Scotland whenever you were a young lad?
Well, it's pretty much the same story because it all ties into when, like people started getting. I mean, what we call the council telly in the UK. You know, we never had wrestling. You know, we had 4 channels at the time, if you were lucky. What was it called? So, what was it? What tended to happen is the wee arsehole kid with all the money got Sky Television, and then you became his friend. So pretty much the same sort of story. But I think it was 89 or 90 when I first seen the WWE. And it was Superstars, and it was just like highlight shows and things like that, you know. And and at that point they were sort of, I think they were re-showing, well, what you would call sort of reruns of like Prime and things like Prime Time. But was it Monsoon? And so that's what I sort of grew up with. You know, never really. My first sort of initial into the sort of wrestling. You seen that these sort of events, and it was chop and change. It wasn't obviously. Then you started like going to the video shop and go, oh, there's that Hulk Hogan, you know, or you know, and you started picking up the old sort of WrestleMania tapes and things like that. I say old, they're old, but they were still newish at the time, you know. Obviously, you had the Coliseum videos, which was a big introduction to a lot of the stuff that happened before in the 80s, you know. And then obviously I remember getting the Piper one and like thinking Piper was the greatest guy ever because he was Scottish and he was an arse, you know, which was perfect because that's who I am, you know. So, that was my sort of introduction. Don't want to go into too much more because obviously we pretty much similar sort of story around how we got into wrestling.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you were probably really drawn to Roddy Piper in the kilt, right?
Yeah. I mean, but was it most definitely that kilt? Ooh.
Now, who rocks a kilt better?
Joking aside, I actually do. I don't know what you're all at, but I actually do remember World of Sport. I actually remember watching World of Sport.
Okay.
And I was, what was it? It went sort of bust round about 85, you know. So, what was it? I knew what it was, and remember watching it, you know, on a Saturday or a Sunday. I can't remember. It was on with Grand Slam or whatever, you know, whatever it was. Can't remember, but I can sort of remember that. And what was it? like thinking how like watching at that time they would show like ones of like Kendo Nakasaki, and you had Adrian was it Streets, and young Steven Regal, and you know you had all these great guys, you know.
Wow.
What was it? What was it? You know, and obviously you had Kid and Johnny Saint and things like that. So obviously
Yeah.
that was getting ran, but after they had the big sort of what was it, Wembley Arena show, not the stadium, the big sort of giant haystacks. What was it, Big Daddy? I think they two really destroyed it. You know, what was it? And there was a lot of like sort of mismanagement of. What was it? Mismanagement of what was it? Sort of money, and I sort of covered this the other week. And I do think the American wrestling was pretty much on the same sort of trajectory as what the UK and sort of wrestling scene was like. It was massive, and then it wasn't. You know, like then the NWA, and one of the big things, if you look at it from that perspective, if it wasn't for what Vince did and changed it up, then what was it? The NWA was going the same way. They were all doing dodgy stuff. They were all what was it? What was it? Losing money. They were all in the red. You know, everybody points out, likes to claim that the WWE sort of destroyed sort of wrestling in North America. No, Vince did what he did, and other people went, "Oh, that might work," and then they tried it, but he came out on top. You know, so.
Yeah.
What was it? No matter what you think of the guy, you know, I think he did save wrestling, because if you look at the two sort of like US and UK and in Canada as well, all the wrestling companies were running parallel. They were all, and what I mean by that is they were all losing money. You know, they were all what was it? Attendances was starting to drop. You know, so
Yeah.
it sort of forced that change.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll actually come back to that in a moment, because that's kind of the topic I'm going to circle to next. But I want to get my pal Liam in here for a second. Now, I know you and I have talked about this before in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what was kind of your introduction to WWE, and like what impact did it have on, you know, society or whatever? If you have anything to add different than what Jim and Alex just said about WWE.
Yeah, I think they're both kind of like all in the green for all like I would got brought up with. But one thing I always remember was one of my uncles used to like give me the VHS, like it would have like pay per views from like late 90s. Like the first one I remember was King of the Ring '99, and I'm like, wow, this is absolutely cool. Do you know what I mean? At the time, when you're watching it as a kid, you're like, oh my god, what the hell? These guys are actually beating the shit out of each other. Do you know what I mean? Because you're just a kid, it draws you in like that. And then obviously as you get older and stuff like that, we start to obviously understand what goes into it and stuff like that. But at the time, I always thought they were just WWE, and then I can't remember exactly how. I'm like, oh, actually, no, there's a whole, I wouldn't say underbelly, but like, do you know, like a lot more to it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I've told you the story about it, because we kind of drew parallels. We both had an uncle that got us into this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had an uncle as well that always had all the old NWA and WWE events on VHS that he recorded.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So every time I would go, he lived with my grandparents. Every time I went over to my grandparents' house, I would like pop in those tapes and watch them. So like I watched all the old NWA events and the WrestleManias and the first Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble and all that. And that's what really kind of got me into it in like the late 80s. And you know, I became such a big fan that when I was a kid, my uncle bought me a subscription to the Pro Wrestling Torch. So like when I was like 10 years old, I had the actual folded up printed newsletter of the Pro Wrestling Torch that would show up to my house every month. And, you know, I would get like the insider information. And, you know, this is pre-internet. So all the kids at school were like, how the hell did you know that this guy was going to show up? I'm like, well, I've got an inside track, man. I can't reveal my sources, but
what you should have said is that I'm psychic.
I'm psychic.
Yeah, it's just like there's somebody in the room with what was it? You know, I was believe it or not, what was it? The way I discovered WCW was at the end of a school year. What was it? And what had happened was, what was it? At the time, the big thing you had was the Nintendo, the NES Entertainment System.
Yeah.
And one of the lads in my class sadly passed away when we were in high school. one of his cousins was over from the States for a while, and he was in the school, and we were having a sort of one of these days where you were like we were allowed to bring your video, what was it, your board games and things like that into school. Obviously, even me having a Nintendo, I'm like, board games? What is that shit? You know, I'll take him a Nintendo, and then obviously that led to like what was it, Stingray, and then all of a sudden. This lad runs out at lunchtime, comes back, because we weren't doing any lessons. It was the end of the year. And he comes in with WCW. What was it called? Unfortunately, he knew a way to play it on the Nintendo. But it was because he brought it over. And that's how I discovered WCW.
Oh, wow.
The video game.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Sorry?
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah. What was it? So what's ironic about it was... what's ironic about it was is... we had all played the WrestleMania game, which was absolute shite, and all of a sudden...
Absolute shite?
Shite!
It was shite, my friend.
Yes. I was trying to make it... Right, okay, it was bollocks, right, okay. It was... what was it? So we're playing this game, and we realised that the WCW game was so much better. What was it? Than the WWF game. It wasn't the first WrestleMania that we had. We never got that. The really, really shitty one with the, what was it, like the front view. We got the one with the isometric view, and the controls were terrible, and you could wrestle as Andre the Giant and things like that. Which we thought was cool at the time. And then we played WCW, and we realised, nah, we've been done a disservice here. What's this?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember the old WCW game. It had the Road Warriors on the cover. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember
that. The old SmackDown games were probably my favorite.
Oh yeah, the early early 2000s like PS2 era.
Yeah, Jim, what about you, game wise?
Game wise, yeah. Weirdly, it was actually a video game that got me back into wrestling. My friend had on the N64. He had WWE Warzone, or WWF Warzone as it was at the time, with Austin on the front of it, and it wasn't the greatest game. Like it was fairly limited. I think Austin was in it, and Bret Hart was in it, The Undertaker. So we were sort of looking at it and going, right, I remember Bret Hart from when I was a kid, and I remember The Undertaker from when I was a kid. I've heard of Mankind, but the rest of them, not a clue. And we started playing that game a lot.
Yeah.
And eventually we went, you know what, we should watch some wrestling since we're getting into this game. And that's how we got hooked on it. But yeah, then they did the follow-up to that, which was WWF Attitude, which was just exactly the same game, but it had loads more characters.
Yeah.
And then that's when the SmackDown games started, and they were really good fun. But there was the other N64 one again, the WCW one. Was it NWO versus WCW or something?
Yeah, and then the Revenge, which is still the best wrestling game of
they
all
were
time.
Great games.
I liked all the knockoff New Japan or the knockoff Japanese guys they had. Like they had the great Sasuke. They called him Black Ninja. It's like playing as him because he did all the flips and martial arts kicks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, them were the days. You know,
Absolutely.
you know what's quite funny? You talk about you talk about that generation, like, so you sort of implied in that sort of generational thing about like you mentioned Hulk Hogan, then we had like Bret Hart, the Next Generation. There's like 3.5 years between them. It's like they ain't no Next Generation, you know.
Time
when Bret Hart was after wrestling before Hogan.
Yeah, when you're a kid, it's a long time though, and I think for Vince McMahon's bank balance, the difference between the Hogan era and the Bret Hart era probably felt like a long time. So
yeah. Most definitely.
Like, damn it, I haven't made any money in 5 fucking years. What are we doing?
Well, let's screw this bastard over.
Well, the next thing I was going to bring up was kind of, what Haney already alluded to was kind of the shift from territory days to national. And, I don't think this phenomenon is strictly wrestling based. I think this is just kind of economy based. Like in the 1980s, it seemed like we were becoming less of a regionalized artisan type economy and moving more towards like a nationalized product for most things. And I think pro wrestling kind of fell into that. It became less of a regionalized product and became more of a cohesive national product. So I guess my question is, and you know, I think Haney kind of already gave his thoughts on it here. Do we think that the NWA territory system basically dying as a result of WWE's rise on a national level, or do you think it would have happened anyways? Liam, what do you think?
Oh, that's a. I mean, I think it would have died anyway, because obviously WWE, if I remember rightly, was scooping up all the talent from each territory anyway. So if you've not got that draw for your talent, really, you're not going to have like a decent product and stuff. I mean, I'm not familiar, obviously, with the territory days. I will be honest and stuff like that, because I got into wrestling late. But that's probably the only thing I can really say on it, mate. To be honest with you.
Yeah, that's fine. You're substantially younger than I am, so that makes sense. But yeah, Jim, what do you think, man? What do you think the national territory days would have ended if WWF hadn't gone national?
It's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, I think they would have still existed in some form, but I think it needed something to elevate wrestling to more of a mainstream concern. And I think maybe the national territories would have still existed, but it would have become more of a niche thing than it was at the time. Because, you know, every sort of pop cultural phenomenon has ups and downs, and wrestling would have been popular. But then when you got the expansion of television and televised sports and things like that anyway, something had to happen to get the wrestling out there. And if it had have stayed as just different territories, it wouldn't have had the same sort of crossover appeal. It's like we used to have in this country, ITV, our third channel as it was, used to have like regional programming. So all the other channels would be the same wherever you were. But like you'd go around your granddad's house and his ITV would be different. And you'd be like, whoa, why is that not on at 6 o'clock on a Saturday? And I imagine for wrestling fans, if they're in a territory and they go to a different state and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, who are these guys? Where are my guys? You know? So I don't think it'd have broke into the media landscape in the same way. And I imagine that would have had an impact on the profitability of it all. So I think you would have still got wrestling shows, but I don't think it would have been as big, or you know, they wouldn't have been still in that boom period that they were having. Or I say boom period loosely, but yeah, I think the trajectory would have been down. But I think wrestling's one of them things that'll always exist for a dedicated audience, regardless.
Yeah. Might be a bit of a niche audience that might be shrinking by the year, but it's going to be around in some capacity. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I don't think wrestling in terms of that is like the shrinkage in wrestling is a very strange one because it comes down to that. It comes down to the niche audience.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? The reason WWE is so popular because it allows popular culture to come into it. You know.
Very true.
It allows music. It allows. I mean, what was it? If you go back, go back to sort of like the sort of late '90s with, the early '90s with like WWE in the UK. I mean, what was it when it was like super popular? It was everywhere, and I'm sure it was the same in the States. You know, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Hogan. What was it? Or Warrior. I mean, we even had like songs in the charts, you know. We had like WrestleMania and we had like Slam Jam and things like that. But it's like you're laughing, but these songs made it into the top 20, and this is when music was huge, you know.
Oh, I know, dude. I know.
But it was enormous, you know.
There were classics.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, one went to number 3 for crying out loud. What was it? You know, and it's just. And then you go forward a few years and you've got the sort of US version of what became the sort of what was it, sort of raw intro, you know. That's actually a song, you know, and what was it? And it's called what was it? We're All Together, you know, and that's what became the Raw sort of theme, right?
Yeah.
And there's a music video for that. So in the music video, it's got Scott Ian from Anthrax. It's got Kenny. What was it? What was it? Hickey from Typo Negative. You know,
Oh,
it's got
wow.
what was it? What was it? Tim Miller from Overkill. You know, it's like,
I didn't even know this.
you know, it's like they've always been able to move into a cultural thing, you know, and
Yeah.
and that's why that's where the entertainment element comes out of it, as opposed to, like, I said it the other week when I called in about the internet wrestling community as well. The internet wrestling community is tiny.
Yep.
There's not that many people in it, you know. People think they got all high and mighty about how we're the what was it, the guardians of wrestling, you know. Are you hell, you know? You're just some schmuck online, just what was it, talking about wrestling like everybody else, you know. But
Right.
was it just that you haven't got an ability to have an opinion? You haven't got the ability to let other people have an opinion against what you like, you know, and what you don't like. But that's it, and that's always been the case with wrestling. Wrestling's always been niche. It's always had that. When it's up, and that's when the casual fans and that's when the families are there, you know, with the kids and the grandkids. But when it's really down, that's when the hardcore wrestling fans are there, and they what was it? They've been going for years, you know, and what was it? There's hardly anybody in the arena. What was it? That's always been in the case in wrestling, you know. We
Yeah.
tell so many lies. We tell so many lies in wrestling. And what was it like? What was it? We look back at ECW and we look back at like Ring of Honor with great fondness. If they had the fan base that they claim to have now, you know, they would be up there with WWE and WCW and TNA and AEW, but they just didn't. You know, what was it? But that's part of the magic as well, and the allure of wrestling is that whole mystique of presenting it as to be something bigger than it really is. You know.
I will say, just for a interesting tidbit here, ECW on TNN here in the U.S. averaged 1 million viewers, whereas Dynamite gets 600,000 now. So just for point of comparison's sake.
Yeah, and the ratings thing, like what was it? It's very odd. Because we can sort of look at the ratings thing and say, well, it's different because we've lost all these viewers. I mean, when WCW disappeared, instantly 3 million people left. You know,
Mhm.
but that was because everybody and I come back to the sort of narrative around what like wrestling's being like, why can't we just love wrestling? But WCW, what happened to WCW at the end when everybody just left as an example? They weren't willing to, because they had a team, they had a side, you know?
Yeah.
And that's all like one wrestling nonsense is just nonsense. What was it? Because you only say that, but yet when it comes to like talking about yours against the other ones that you don't like, you're very vocal about it, you know, and that's everybody. And anybody that tells me they don't do that is lying. You know,
Yeah, you're right.
you have a side. You've picked a side, or you're loyal to a side. You know, and that's my thing. You can go and enjoy the other thing and the other shows, but you're always going to come back to what you love and what you support. You know, and what you've invested your time and money in. And that's just like everything else. It's like every other sport. But incidentally, the ratings thing, what was it, for wrestling coincides, and it was the only thing that goes against the grain of the decreasing viewership is major sports like NFL, basketball. You know, hockey's actually slipped down a bit, but
We're not talking about hockey, and we're talking about WWE.
no, I know. Yeah, but well, we can get to that in a minute, because you had a great wrestler in the WWE called the Goon, you know, and he was a hockey player. Yeah, and I'll tell you something. Chris Jericho says that he nearly got the Goon gimmick. No, the Goon gimmick was too good for him. That was why he didn't get it. You know, he wouldn't been able to pull it off.
I'll give him a
Anyways.
couple of weeks. He'll try it.
But my point is, the only thing that's going against with ratings is what was it? The decrease in ratings and the decrease in cable tie-in was everything. The only thing that said sort of still stayed at the sort of same level as major sports. And I don't include wrestling in major sports because it's not a sport. But I know some people won't like that. But yeah.
Okay.
Haney, I'm gonna start calling you Haney Damas because like you have like stepped in front of each one of the topics I'm bringing up, and like you've already started talking about the one I was going to next.
Oh, I am sorry.
Have you guys fucking shared notes or something?
Because what I was going to get into next was, after the WWF obviously kind of takes over, becomes the big dog, and WCW, ECW are no longer here with us. I was going to get into the talk of the WWE/F style of booking versus outside non-WWE style of booking. So basically, the presentation of pro wrestling and its various inclinations, whether you're talking about strong style, whether you're talking about Southern wrestling, whether you're talking about, Ring of Honor, kind of American Puro or ECW or whatever, versus sports entertainment, the Vince Pat Patterson style of booking of WWE. And how do you think WWE style has been so much more successful than other booking styles? Liam, what would you say about that?
Can I just say first, if I get ahead of myself again, just use a password. Just shout out banana.
I'll just kick you off.
And I'll stop.
Just shout banana. When Haney's in the middle of a rant about the Young Bucks, I'm just going to shout banana, and he's just going to stop cold turkey in the middle of the sentence.
Sorry, what was the question again?
How do you think, why do you think that WWE's sports entertainment style, so to speak, has resonated in popular culture and been more successful than the old school wrestling approach, a more pure approach?
I think you got to look at the adaptation. I mean, you've got the Attitude Era, you've got the Ruthless Aggression Era. Do you know what I mean? Different time periods and stuff like that. And obviously, Attitude Era, do you know what I mean? They push the boundaries and stuff. And then as years progress, you can slowly see that they're not pushing their boundaries a little bit more. So that's where you get like that sports entertainment feel and stuff like that, which does piss off a lot of fans because so many fans are like, oh, we want to go back to this era, but you can't because unfortunately it's kind of like the world we're living in now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll go ahead and give my answer here. I think sports entertainment is more successful than, pure style wrestling because of the fact that it's all encompassing. Like pure style wrestling is really only for a niche audience of people who like that. People like us, people who are, lifelong wrestling fans. We like to watch that kind of stuff. But if you put New Japan on, NBC here in the States at 8:00 at night, people are going to be like, what the fuck is this shit? They're not going to get it. They're not going to get into it. Whereas sports entertainment, you got, celebrities coming in and you've got, it focuses more on aesthetics, production value, big guys, as opposed to like little technical guys. And it's just something that's a little more consumable by people who are, the lay person, someone who doesn't know a whole lot about wrestling, someone who just turns on the TV and says, hey, this kind of looks cool. So I think that's, and I know it's much to the chagrin of the internet wrestling community, but I think that's the reason why WWE has been, will always be the most successful wrestling company on earth, because they appeal to a much wider, broader audience that say AEW just can't do. And I don't think I don't think anybody's ever going to catch up to them because of that sports entertainment style of booking that Vince and, Pat Patterson and, dare I say Vince Russo and guys like Cornette all kind of came up with over the years. Jim, what do you think? What do you think is the reason why the WWE's brand and style of booking has been more successful than everybody else?
I think brand has a lot to do with it. Like building on what you said there earlier about Vince and the territories and everything like that. I think once he got the national platform, he was able to put across this idea of WWF is the wrestling show. And for the broader audience who aren't the hardcore fans, if you're shown something and told this is wrestling, this is what wrestling should look like, you're going to buy that. And like, I think we got that more in the UK because we were so restricted in what else we could watch. Mm-hmm. So, and it happens generationally. So, I was introduced to it as a kid and I was told this is what wrestling should look like. And then, the younger fans, the same cycle happens again. And I think that because we associate it so much with that brand and the way it's done in WWE, something that doesn't do that, there's something in us that it just doesn't feel as big. Like, I think it's less Vince McMahon as a booker, but Vince McMahon as a promoter that he was so good at. He created this iconic notion of, like, take WrestleMania, for example, the idea of a WrestleMania main event, regardless of if you're a bigger fan of AEW, which I would count myself as at the moment. I enjoy their in-ring product a lot more. But nothing AEW can do is as big as a WrestleMania main event. You know, I went to Wembley and I saw Swerve versus Bryan Danielson, and it was awesome. But that's not as big as Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania 40. And a lot of that is just the promotion that's put into it and the way it's seeped into popular culture. It just doesn't feel as big. Like, if you want to draw a comparison, like if a new sci-fi movie comes out, like the Dune films, they've done really well, but the general audience goes, I want the same as Star Wars. And it's just because for a broad audience, Star Wars is science fiction at the cinema. And I think for a broad audience, WWE is wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's very fitting how you put that. And I agree with those points entirely. Haney, what do you have to add on this? I know you kind of started already with the last one, but what is your, if you had to be concise about it and give one specific reason why sports entertainment is more successful than old school traditional pro wrestling, what would you say it is?
Banana, next question.
Banana, next question. No, see, that's not the password. The password is banana. So you fail. You know.
Yeah, he put next question at the end of that, so it's like
banana.
Recognize 3 words instead of 1.
You gotta be clear when you say safe word.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the password expires after 2 minutes. So I'll tell you the next password after this. But no, I've lost. Sorry, I shouldn't carry on so much. I've lost my train of thought. Right, so what were we talking about? We were talking about toasted cheese. Yeah. So, but I prefer to make toasted cheese like in an oven grill, right? Like,
what we were talking about, Haney, just to get you back on point, who looked better in a kilt, Roddy Piper or Drew McIntyre?
Oh, it's got to be Roddy Piper.
Oh, really?
Drew doesn't wear a kilt properly. Drew wears trunks under his kilt, for crying out loud. You know, but if a Scotsman does that,
you got to have the ability to see some goods, right?
But no, yeah. Joking aside, what was it? I think if you were to put it into sort of one concise word, it's pop culture. You know, and that's essentially what the WWE is. They've always been able to adapt and change to pop culture. You know, what was it? And their product to the casual fan, no matter what some of the idiots online say, isn't boring to the casual fan, because they present it in such a great way. They don't have to watch 20 minutes of 2 idiots doing flips and backflips and forward flips and roly polies and what was it? They get in and out. What was it? And that ties into being able to adapt as well. Modern sort of audiences, the kids now, their attention span is god awful. You know, I think I did a bit of research into that. It was a while back, and the reason why ads in America, per half hour, you get 23 minutes of programming, is because that's what the attention span was of the average sort of 18 to 25-year-old in the 70s and 80s. It's now less than 14 minutes. Right,
oh, yeah.
So, right, that's why we all laugh as wrestling fans about WWE speed. Right, they're on the money with that because people are consuming. And where that research comes from is YouTube Shorts. Right, 2 minutes, bang, like people are consuming so much crap. You know, go watch the film Audacity if you've never seen it. Right, yeah. perfect example of what the world is. Sadly, the guy is set in like what was it the what was it 3010. Sadly, the guy was a millennia. What was it too early on? What was it? Too late? Sorry, on when it was actually going to happen. It's happening now. What was it? That's it. It's just the way they let people consume it. Not us as wrestling fans, right? Because we'll watch like New Japan, we'll watch all the different styles, we'll watch Lucha, we'll watch what was it the strong style or whatever it is, we watch all the styles because we're wrestling fans. But the casual fan doesn't consume it that way. They just want to see something happen, you know, and that's why the big moments get posted online straight away now.
That's why people are so much more enamored by like the Bloodline story than they are, say, Will Ospreay's matches in AEW. You know, like it's just it's the storytelling, the production, like that's what hooks in the casual. It's not the moves.
No.
The moves captures, you know, people like us. But I mean, I get what you're saying for sure, and I agree with it.
Yeah. I wouldn't say what Will Ospreay does is wrestling, but yeah, I mean, but what was it? Certainly, I've been to a Cirque du Soleil show, and it's more along the lines of that. But yeah.
All right, I'm gonna shift gears here before we go into a big tirade about Ospreay's wrestling. We're at 51 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and round third base here. An American baseball term. I don't know if you guys get that or not, but I'm going to bring up the last topic that we have here, and this is going to be an interesting discussion. What's that?
It means something else in the UK.
It means that over there too.
we can wait till one of the after dark shows to elaborate on that. All right, Haney. All right. But the last thing I'm going to get into here, and I think this is going to be kind of an interesting discussion, is do you think it is possible for anyone in the world to catch up to WWE business-wise at this point? And it could be AEW, it could be New Japan, it could be some new upstart company, it could be anything. Do you think anything will ever catch WWE and surpass it in popularity?
Can I give you a short answer?
Go ahead, Haney.
No. Do you know why? Because the WWE can always adapt and change.
I think he's summed it up best.
That's it. They've done it multiple times. They did it with WCW.
Yeah.
But the product was stank, and all they did was they adapted to look at WCW's doing. Okay, let's do a bit of that, and then we'll do a bit more. Right? That's to me is the answer to that.
Yeah. Very concise. An unusually concise and short answer from the salty son of a bitch, Alex Haney.
Do you wish me to elaborate?
No, not really.
Jim, what do you think, my friend? Do you think it's possible at this point for anyone to catch WWE? Why or why not?
For a wrestling company, no. I think that WWE will always be the number one wrestling company in the world, and I think everyone else, you might see number two change and switch.
Yeah.
But in terms of wrestling, no. But I think WWE, as we've talked about, has become a pop cultural juggernaut. So you can take it out of its own industry. And like when I was a kid, wrestling was really in for maybe 2 years. There was a 2-year period where it was really, really hot with the kids. And then it died off and the next fad came along, whatever it was. Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, whatever it was at the time. And I think and I think that's the actual battle, if you like, that WWE's in, because it has transcended its own industry, and I think it will get higher up in popular culture. People will become more aware of it, and then it'll drop again, and that will ebb and flow, and that's what its real competition is. But in terms of as a wrestling company, no, I don't think Tony Khan may say different, but I don't think realistically anyone thinks that that's actually achievable. I think they're happy to be in second position and to put out a product that's significantly different enough for a different audience to get something out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
On the subject of Tony Khan, cocaine is one hell of a drug.
This show's gonna get fucking booted if he carries on.
Liam, what's your answer to that question, my friend?
I'm just going to keep it short and simple. I think Ian said it best. No, do you know what I mean? WWE's got too much of a head start, too much history, and I think Haney summed it up pretty much best when he said that they can adapt always. I mean, look at what they're doing now. They're going to Netflix, goddammit.
Yeah.
You know, NXT is an example. NXT is what AEW was going to be. Okay, they had a couple of big names, and then they were going to bring in all these new stars, right?
Yeah.
But was it as soon as AEW got, as soon as that, what was it, December episode of Dynamite happened with the Dark Order and the terrible punches, and they switched it all up. Everything went out of the window. You know, but was it no? That's the point where it all changed for AEW. That's exactly the point it changed for AEW, and that's where the trend is and the decline is starting. Although they went up because Punk came in and things like that, that's where the decline started to happen, because it's got away from what that first offering was in AEW, which is basically what NXT is. It might not be as technical wrestling, but it's the same concept. It's new people, it's fresh, and that's why fans that are WWE fans were a bit fed up with the WWE product. They're not going to AEW, they're turning into NXT. So you know, I think AEW missed a trick. They wanted to be WWE rather than be an alternative.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
They've signed a whole load. And when WWE bring in somebody as well, they brought in like Cody, and they bring in and things like that. They know what they're going to do with them. Whereas for me, the mistake AEW's made is they bring in these big names because they were big names in WWE, and they think it's a big get, but they don't realise, they don't know how to book them. Punk is a perfect example. They just wanted Punk to get one over in the WWE, right? Yeah. And they got it, and then when they got him, they didn't know what to do because it didn't fit the narrative of what their show was.
Yeah.
They've got Jericho, who clearly is an idiot, and Vince McMahon obviously had a control of all the stupid ideas that he had. You know, what was it? You know, that to me, and that's not slight, because I enjoy elements of the product. That was very disrespectful, Mr. Liam person.
I'm sorry, Annie. I just thought I'd just throw it in at some point.
Yeah, but yeah, was it? That's not like me criticising in any. Sorry,
it still didn't fucking work. It's still gabbing.
Oh, do you want me to? Do you actually want me to shut up, or do you want me to talk? Because you brought me on as the salty one.
Please continue.
Go ahead, Mr. Haney.
Anyways, when you put the bread in the oven to grill it, and then you pull it out, then you grate the cheese on the top of the bread.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, none of this sandwich making toasty nonsense. That's just rubbish. You know, you want that sort of nice, even sort of grilled oven sort of thing over the top of your bread. Anyways, that's how you make good toasted cheese.
Do y'all use air fryers over there, Haney?
Yeah, they're becoming a big thing. Everybody uses the air fryer. They might have to talk about air fryers in the office. It's just ridiculous. I did this in the air fryer. Yeah.
I'm sorry about that, Annie, by the way.
Yeah, that's all right. I made a lasagna in the air fryer the other day. Yeah.
You made lasagna in the air fryer?
Yeah, a lasagna. I made a baby.
Can we shift gears? I think Ian's lost it.
Haney's got into that scotch, is what it is.
Probably.
Whiskey? Oh my God, man! What?
Fermented in the air fryer.
All But that was basically all I had on my agenda. And
I've got a couple of questions I can throw if you want to.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
So, obviously, with the change of leadership and everything, what's gone off over the past 3-4 years and stuff like that, what do you think now? And now everything's obviously happened and stuff like that. And what do you think the future is, obviously, for WWE as a product? I'll start with you, Mr. Isaacs.
I think that I think the booking is definitely going to be better. I don't think the product is great right now, to be honest with you. I don't think any wrestling product is really that good at the moment, if I'm just being totally honest. But I think WWE's booking will trend upward because I do think Triple H has a much better mind for booking than Vince and his stooges, Bruce Pritchard and all of them, who I know is still there. So I think overall the product's going to improve over time. What's going to be really interesting to me is if there's something that forces, any McMahon affiliated person out of the company. So if like Triple H and Bruce Pritchard, if all of them end up leaving at some point, which inevitably they will at some point, where's WWE go from there? Like, who's even going to be qualified to run creative at WWE at that point? Do they bring Shawn Michaels into it? like who are they going to have run the show? Is Brian Gewirtz going to come back since The Rock's there? Is he going to run it? It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over these next few years. What's that?
Can I make a proposal?
Go ahead.
Eva Marie.
SmackDown will become red like Raw then because it's all red everything. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jim, what about you, my man?
Yeah, I think I agree the booking has got a lot better since Vince went, and I feel like Triple H is sort of slow and steady seems to be his approach. There's nothing too outlandish, but it feels like he's got things mapped out and he knows where he's going. I do feel like at the moment maybe it's settling into a bit of a groove in terms of they're doing this sort of one mega show in the US and then we're doing these shows, the sort of B grade live events, and they're doing them abroad more, and that's getting a huge reaction on the night. But they're doing these small cards with 5 matches, so I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just playing it a little bit safe at the minute. The fans have enjoyed, oh my God, it's so much better than when Vince was in charge. But it's how long can they ride that before they have to start mixing it up again? And that's what I'm interested to see is what does phase 2 of the Triple H era look like? He's done a decent job so far, but it can't coast on this forever, and I want to see where it goes after that.
I think with I think part of the coasting comes into the fact that they don't want to do too much before Netflix as well. I do think they're going to do something big there.
Yeah.
But was it for me? I don't think they'll ever come out officially come out of the PG era, whether or not in Netflix it can be tagged as TV 14 and things like that.
Yeah.
Because there's too much involved there. There's too much money involved there with Mattel, but what a lot of people don't realise is one of the reasons they went to PG. I mean, I thought the Jax figures were the best. Absolute best WWE figures. Some of the like the deluxe ones were amazing, like the Bret and the $1 Million Man and the Roddy Piper and the Mr. Perfect, which I've got fortunately. But was it that Mattel deal was so big to the WWE because that opened up you don't realise how many avenues that opens up as well as sponsors. Or you've got Mattel building your figures, maybe. But was it that product from the 90s isn't as bad as what was it once were? Let's have a look. Oh yeah, they're actually quite good. Let's put some money behind the guys, What was it? And people forget it's a business, and that what was it? For me. Yeah, I get what you're saying, Mr. Isaacs, in terms of what Triple H what happens if Triple H steps aside. I do think there's people there. The big risk to the WWE just now is a guy called Dwayne Johnson. I think what was it? You make power play his guys in there. What was it down the line? What was it?
Well, that's what I was saying. You
Yeah.
know, he brings in Brian Gewirtz, who's been like his
Yeah.
personal writer for years, and used to be head writer
Yeah.
of Raw for many years.
Yeah. I want to punch
Yeah.
that guy in the face. Some of his promo stuff is just shit. I mean, you're a grown ass man, Rock. Come on. Don't need another guy to write your shit for you, crying out loud. What was it? Yeah. I mean, I think like if I was to make a guess, I think in the maturity of it, a couple of things are going to happen in the next couple of years. The fact that they're talking about a performance center in Vegas next with the UFC guys, I think there's going to be a cross. I can see a big UFC bout at a WrestleMania. What was it called? So you're crossing that sports entertainment market. You know, you're bringing it like multiple things into it. You
Yeah.
might see crossover. They're going to be training with it. They're going to be training with the same people in the same just like the gyms and things like that. Maybe more crossover there, blurring that line. You know, Japan's already done that. They did it quite well. You know, but again, that's a niche audience. They can maybe get away with a couple of programs on Netflix with that, but not sort of thing way. And then obviously the big NXT one, I think, sitting there is probably Punk. I think Punk's probably going to take over NXT. And what was it?
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
What was it? You know, Punk and Regal there. You know, what was it?
If they can get along.
Yeah, they might get along.
Apparently they did not get along in AEW.
Yeah. the big mistake AEW is making is they spent £50 million on a dreadful video game. Right? If they give that £50 million, built a development studio and a wrestling development, and say to Brian Danielson and say, you want to be pro wrestling, go build as pro wrestlers, you know.
Yeah.
Think about what would come out of that, you know.
I think that would be
50 million.
terrific. That would be terrific if they did that. Yeah.
What was it? But I just don't think they've got that mentality like the WWE have. But what was yet they might get there. But for me, that's the future. The short-term future. Long-term, I don't know, because obviously I've got the same questions about what happens if Triple H and that walks away. But I do think down the line, it's going to get a bit muddy and a bit messy, because I do think somewhere down the line, Rock's movie career is on that decline just now, and he's going to need a project in the next couple of years. And what was it called? And it might be the WWE, and then he might power play that way in, you know. So who knows? Because he's friends with Dick. So
yeah.
There's no more Black Adam, bitch.
No.
But he's saving Santa from being kidnapped this Christmas, so you know.
Yeah. I can't wait to see that. I'm sure it's going to be.
What's that? What's that? I didn't know. What's that?
It's called Red One, and basically Santa gets kidnapped, and The Rock is like Santa's bodyguard, and he has to rescue him, and he gets Chris Evans to help him.
It's going to be on Amazon Prime Video, I believe. I'm sure it's going to win like multiple awards.
Yeah. Is he going to go? Is he going to? You're not the people champion. You're a very naughty boy.
Liam, you need to clip that, and we'll put it on the soundboard.
Oh, we definitely will do. Don't you worry. Dude, this has been an absolutely amazing show, guys. Jim, hope you've had a blast.
Yeah, it's been great.
It's been great having you on, Jim.
Thank you.
And it's always a blast, mate. We always have fun, right?
Yeah, and definitely, and just as a wee added bonus, if you want to put a wee bit of Tabasco sauce on the top of that grated that toasted cheese, French kiss.
Yeah, hot sauce makes anything better. I mean, it just does. You put that shit on everything, you know, like they say in the viral meme. Yeah.
If you guys want to support the show, scan the QR code on screen. This will take to our link tree. Absolutely all our socials on there: our Instagram, our Twitter, the AFW network, which has got all the other shows on. Mr. Isaacs, we're saying it every week. Do you know what I mean? We're in the land of QR codes now.
We are. We're like the Wyatt Six. Like we got our own QR codes and shit. Like it's pretty fancy. Like we need to eventually get you in like a pig mask or something.
Yeah.
No.
And have that pop up on the screen with the QR code.
What's me going like
that? I think I could pull off the dress that Nikki Cross is wearing. Definitely.
Oh, jeez.
I need to shave my legs though.
I don't even know what to say to that, Henry. Let's just move along, shall we? Oh, dear. The Magic of Wrestling, of course, is back this Monday as I chat to Psycho Boy Fodder, which is kind of curious because this kind of links in to next week's show because obviously he's done a lot of work for the NWA, which is on next week's show. So tune in for that. And yeah, Jim, anything you want to plug, my man?
I'm actually doing a sort of mini podcast series at the moment on a friend of mine. It's called The Doctor Squeeze Show, and where we've been rewatching Twin Peaks.
Wow.
That was our Shocktober challenge, to try and watch the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, the original Twin Peaks, in October. So we're covering that. So yeah, have a look for The Doctor Squeeze Show.
Dr. Squeeze Show. Is that here on YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. And I'm going to plug in my Steam Deck.
Okay. Check out Alex Haney's Stream Deck.
No, don't check it out. I'm just plugging it in. It needs power. Crying out loud, man.
I've got my Stream Deck in front of me. You don't need to plug it. Well, you do actually need to plug it in and stuff like that. But dear, Mr. Isaacs, here's out to the outro.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and simple because my throat's kind of getting dry here. But we're entering into the fall season. Don't let that seasonal depression crop up on you. Don't let it happen.
Yeah.
Stick your fist in the air. Remember to fight back, everybody. Just remember to always keep fighting.